Hey guys, here another movie for guys. Now this movie reviewing, this is the first movie in 2017 that I of course will be reviewing, and I was really skeptical about this movie, honestly, but I figured that I might as well review it because I reviewed the other ones, and that of course is the sequel to the latest Underworld franchise, of course being Underworld Blood Wars. Now, as you guys know, in preparation for this movie, I watched every single Underworld film. If you guys want to check out my reviews of those, I have the links to all of those. I'll probably put them in the description below, but I really had no opinion on this film. Also, as you guys can tell, I'm a little bit under the weather right now, but I figured that I might as well review this movie because if I don't review it now, I'm probably going to forget it. And basically, this film, like I said, I really didn't know how it was going to be. I don't really know why they're continuing these Underworld films, but I gotta say that after watching this one, it's definitely better than Underworld Awakening. I definitely will say that, but it is easily the most boring and forgettable Underworld film so far that I really was not that big of a fan of, and in general, really makes me not want to see more from this series, and I'll get into that, but let's get to the plot of Underworld Blood Wars, which is really simple, and is as basically as simple as you could get with this franchise. Every single plot has been simple. Every single plot has been very one-note. I don't think there's ever been an Underworld plot that's complicated, and this one's no different because we focus on Celine, and basically she now is all alone. The only ally she has is David and Thomas. She's doing what she can to try to protect herself from both the Lycans as well as the vampires who betrayed her, but she's also doing what she can to protect her daughter, and basically in order to do that, she needs to prepare for this war and things like that, and that's the basic plot of Underworld Blood Wars overall. But let's get into this movie, starting off with the cast. So when it comes to the Underworld films, like I said, the one thing that I have given every single film is that it was pretty good acting. The last movie didn't really have it, and this movie feels more like an Underworld acting. I thought the acting here wasn't bad for the most part, but let's talk about Kate Beckinsale, who, at this point, you can just tell is done with the character as Celine. It's not that I don't think she likes playing the character. I feel like she just played this character for so long. I mean, guys, she's played this character since 2000. Like, it's been a long time for her playing this character, and you can tell she's ready to retire it. A lot of her line delivery is very wooden. They don't really give Celine any more interesting stuff to do in the film. I just thought she was kind of boring, honestly, and she's been the glue that's held all these films together, and I just felt like I wasn't really feeling it from her in this film, and I wasn't in Awakening either, but this one, it just seems like she's done to me. It seems like she doesn't really want to do these movies anymore, and I don't know why they're continuing to do them if Kate Beckinsale doesn't want to do them. Just get a new person to do it, honestly. That's what they should have done. But Kate Beckinsale is clearly not in this anymore. I can really see her starting to get out of this role, and it's definitely very noticeable in this. And then Theo James is about as good as he was in the last movie. Still just as bland, still just as interesting as David. There's nothing really interesting going on with David as a character. His bond with Celine just feels very forced in. It seems like he's just there to replace Scott Speedman, and it really does not work whatsoever. I really do not care about his character. I don't really think they went any direction with him. They try to do something with him in this movie, but it just doesn't really work in the way you want to, especially when in the first 40 minutes, something big does happen with his character, but they don't really go in the direction that you think they're going to go with it, and it's just not that interesting. And the problem is, what they try to do with his character, you don't care about the character to begin with, so when they go in this direction with him, you just don't care, and I just found it to be quite boring, and that goes for the rest of the cast as well. However, the one saving grace of this film that I was actually really looking forward to is Tobias Menzies as Marius, because as you guys know, I think Tobias Menzies is one of the best villain-type actors working today. He plays one of the best villains on TV, Captain John Randall. He is so menacing in Outlander. He's so great as that character. If you guys haven't seen him in Outlander, I mean, you're definitely missing out, but I was really hoping that he would make a really compelling villain, and he's about as wooden as a villain could possibly get. I really was not at all intimidated by Marius. I found Tobias Menzies to be, you could just tell that he didn't really want to be here, that he's kind of just doing it for the paycheck, and he's just trying to do it for money reasons and things like that, and I just couldn't really get into his character at all. There really wasn't anything interesting going on with him. He's a Lycan leader, and there is a twist with him at the end of the film, but it just happens too late that you just don't really care about him. By the time they get to this twist, you don't really care about his character, and again, I just found him to be quite boring, and it really sucks because I really do love Tobias Menzies as an actor, but they didn't really give him stuff that I think would really utilize him. You know, he's better playing these menacing type characters, and he's just not that menacing or intimidating in here, and his motive is pretty unclear. Like, why he's doing what he's doing, it's pretty unclear what he really is trying to do, and I didn't really like his character that much. And then you also have Lara Pulver as Samara in this movie, the other villain, and all she does, honestly, is just make things overly convoluted. They try to do a lot with her character. They try to give her all these things going on, you know, about her being a vampire and why she's against them and things like that. But there is way too much with this character. I think she's shown way too much in the film. I didn't really care about her, and just like the rest of the characters, I didn't really care about her character that much. I found her to be, again, quite boring. They do way too much with her, and I just didn't really care about her. And then Charles Dance as Thomas. I never talked about him in the last movie. You can tell he's just here to replace Bill Nighy and Michael Sheen. And the problem is he doesn't have that charisma that Bill Nighy had. He doesn't have that intimidation that Bill Nighy had. And in general, he's just kind of reduced to be a vampire elder who's David's father. And they do take him into an interesting direction in the first 40 minutes of this movie. But I just didn't really find myself caring about him. None of the characters I really did care about in this movie. I found all the characters to be quite bland. Nothing really that interesting going on with them, and by far, this is the most uninteresting cast so far. However, I wouldn't say the acting is the thing that really makes this movie so boring. It's more the directing and the screenplay, which once again, the directing here hasn't done the other films, and it very much shows here. Anna Forster, I think, definitely understands Underworld more than the previous director, because it definitely does feel more like an Underworld movie. I definitely will say that. But at the same time, her directing here is just so sluggish, and the movie is so slow-moving, to the point where you just don't care about what's going on. The dramatic moments don't really work. There's a lot of action going on here, and the dramatic beats just don't work the way they used to. The action here is not that interesting. I just found her directing to be quite bland. I didn't really care much about what she did, and the screenplay here, this is from the same guy who did Priest as well as another film, but Corey Goodman's screenplay here is pretty bad, honestly, and it's not because the story's uninteresting, it's that, at least I will say, that they do try to connect it to the last movie, but you know her daughter who was in the last movie? Yeah, she's not even in this movie. I mean, they spent the whole fourth movie trying to protect her and trying to get those two closer, but no, she's not in this movie, because apparently she sent her away because she's that dangerous that they can't have her there, and it's just dumb that she's a part of this story still. I don't know why she wasn't just in this movie. At least for one or two scenes they could have had her, but she's barely in this thing. I don't think she had a scene in this movie, and that in general is a huge problem. But then you also have Michael Corvin still around in this movie, and it's really annoying because, again, Celine constantly thinks she's hearing Michael and constantly wants to protect Michael and things like that, and it's just really dumb. I found the screenplay to be very uninteresting. But not just that, it takes so long for this damn thing to get going. I mean, the first, I'd say, 50 minutes is just them plotting and plotting and plotting and plotting, setting up this war. And I'm not going to lie, you guys, the war doesn't actually start in this movie till like the last 40 minutes. Then stuff actually happens. But up till then, it was just so slow and so sluggish, and I really didn't care what was going on most of the time, honestly, with the screenplay. I didn't find Samira interesting. I didn't find Mary's interesting. And they try to build up these characters so you can tell, okay, this is why they're doing what they're doing. The problem is, the movie just doesn't really give them that compelling of motives and doesn't really know how to make the characters compelling enough for us to care, and because that, when they were on screen, it kind of was just on the verge of putting me to sleep. I got very bored when it came to the screenplay, I have to say, and I really didn't think they did a good job with keeping it interesting, because they really didn't, and I just thought the screenplay in general wasn't that great. The cinematography here is definitely better than the last one. There definitely isn't, like CGI Lycans. They're there, but they're not as bad as they were in the last movie. The Lycans are definitely a bigger part of the story, and I really did like that. I thought they did a good job with the Lycans overall. The look of them were okay, and I definitely did feel a bit intimidated by some of the scenes, and I think that the fight stuff, there are definitely some good fight scenes in this movie, especially the last 40 minutes. It's very well done. However, they constantly try to make this feel a lot more epic than it is. I'm not gonna lie, there are parts of this movie where you feel like you're watching Game of Thrones. You feel like you're watching, one of those, like, medieval shows, and that's not what Underworld is. Underworld's supposed to be fun, disposable, campy films that know they're ridiculous, but at the same time are very fun because of that, because of them being very self-aware. And this is probably the most serious Underworld film we've had so far, and it really does show because, again, it's very slow because of that, and the story just isn't that interesting. Now, there is an interesting thing they try to do where constantly they want blood, because if you take this blood, it gives you visions of something, and it was kind of cool what they did with that, but the only reason they did that is really to end one character, which I'm not going to talk about, but I will say I did like the way they concluded one storyline. I thought that was pretty well done overall. But the cinematography here is definitely better than the last one. I definitely will say that. The score here was pretty good, definitely to get that epic feel from the score. But again, you're just not really feeling it because the film in general is just very slow and there's really not much going on. The editing to this movie is definitely more unified than the last movie, but again, it just takes so long for this thing to get going. The first 40 minutes, something happens and you think that something is going to happen from there, but the actual war, like I said, doesn't start to the last 40 minutes, and up till then, it's just kind of too late. It's too late for them to keep things interesting. It's too late for them to try to develop the story more. It's too late for them to try to get more on board with this, and it just very much just took me out of it, I have to say. And they do that, 1 minute recap in this movie. I watched this with a friend, and he had not seen a single Underworld film. You can tell those recaps are not working because he still had no idea what's going on. It's way too, the movie doesn't really try to tell you what happened. They move through it very quickly, and maybe that's because the last one was so long, but they try to move through the montage so quickly, it doesn't really work whatsoever. And I gotta say that the editing here was just very slow, very sluggish, and I really couldn't find myself to be that interested in the story. The movie thinks it's a lot more interesting than it is, and you definitely see that throughout the entire film. So overall, guys, Underworld Blood Wars is a little bit better than the last one, only because of the fact that it has a more controlled story, and it feels more like an Underworld film, but it's a lot more uninteresting than the last one. The last one at least had stuff to laugh at and stuff to make fun of, and this movie doesn't have that. And I wouldn't even say this is a bad movie. It's just a very bland movie. It's boring, it's forgettable, it's nothing that I really would recommend to you guys. It's something that I just found to be very sluggish, very slow. They tried to add stuff to this film, and they definitely tried to make it more like an Underworld film, but in general, it really did not work whatsoever. I watched this film, and I honestly wish that I went into this movie without watching the other ones, because you really could. You could go into this one without watching the other ones. Like I said, my friend did that. He didn't know what was going on. I'd say at least watch Underworld Awakening, then watch this one. But if you're not interested by Underworld Awakening, most likely you're not going to be interested by this. It's a franchise that, in my opinion, I'm sick of. I don't really want to see more movies from. But unfortunately, not only is there another movie in development, there's a TV series in development. So you can just tell these writers don't really care about this series anymore. They haven't cared for a long time. I really feel they're just doing this to make a quick buck. I mean, you can definitely tell by the way the acting is, by the way the story is. Everything just feels so half-assed, and I just didn't really care in the way I did in the other films. And I am going to give Underworld Blood Wars, even though it was very boring, I'm still going to give it a 1.5 out of 5, or a D. So over, guys, my review of Underworld Blood Wars. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall. Loved your thoughts on it. What is your favorite Underworld movie so far? Definitely let me know. And also, if you guys are interested in the other Underworld films, they will be down below in the review. I do have another movie review coming today, so I will see you guys for that. Most of my videos today are going to be Golden Globe stuff, because I am going to be doing the Golden Globes live stream around 7:45, so look forward to that. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.